Hey everyone, Steve from ThunderStash Gaming here, and today we're doing something a little different. From now on, I'll be putting out first impressions videos for new game releases before diving into a full review later. This way I can share my initial thoughts and experiences while I'm still playing, giving you an early look at whether the game is worth your time before I go deep with the full breakdown. Today, I've got a first impressions video on the Silent Hill 2 remake. Now, I'm more than halfway through the game, and it's been one hell of a ride so far. There's so much to talk about, from the eerie atmosphere to the stunning graphics, and immersive gameplay, which I was not expecting on this level, which I'll get into more. So let's jump in and break it all down. Let's kick things off by diving into one of the game's standout features, and that's the atmosphere. The Silent Hill series has always been known for its terrifying atmosphere, and this remake absolutely nails it. The atmosphere is incredibly eerie, and the game builds tension in almost every moment. As soon as you step into the world, you can feel that unsettling energy creeping in, and it's a mix of dread, mystery, and honestly fear. The environments are packed with those haunting details that Silent Hill is known for: dark, foggy streets, desolate buildings, and unsettling visuals that make you feel constantly on edge. The fog, which was such a huge part of the original game, is back in full force here, but Bloober Team has really stepped it up. The fog now looks even more dynamic, swirling and moving in ways that keep you guessing about what could be lurking just out of sight. I mean, there are moments where you're walking through this thick fog and you're on high alert because you have no idea what's going to pop out at you next. It's that kind of unpredictability that really ratchets up the suspense and makes you think twice about your next step. Now let's talk about the sound design, which is another major aspect that really helps bring this game to life, or maybe death, depending on how you look at it. The music is constantly unsettling, and it's perfect for creating that feeling of tension and trepidation. The tracks swell just when you think you're safe, really making your heart race. It's not just the music though, but the sound effects too. Everything from the sounds of rain hitting the ground, to the creaking of doors, to the gross, eerie noises some of the enemies make. It's all meticulously designed to keep you on edge. There are moments where I've been playing with my headphones on or with the surround sound, and I'm just completely wrapped up in the experience. You hear things in the distance that put you on alert, whether it's the faint groans of an enemy or just the ambient noises of the world. Everything is designed to make you feel like danger could be right around the corner. It really reminds me of the first time I experienced the clickers from The Last of Us, where even the sound of the enemies kind of makes your skin crawl. And I can't forget to mention again the rain. The sound of the rain in this game is fantastic, and combined with the visuals, it's almost soothing until something awful happens and snaps you out of it. Let's dive into the graphics, where Silent Hill 2 Remake really shines. Now, guys, 9 times out of 10, I'm selecting performance mode to hit 60 frames per second without even thinking twice. But this time, I decided to give fidelity mode a shot, and honestly, I'm glad I did. The improvements in lighting, shadows, and overall visual detail are really noticeable. So in case you were wondering, I actually decided to stick with the game lock at 30 FPS, which is pretty rare for me. Bloober Team claims that performance mode targets 60 frames per second, but when I tested it, it certainly didn't feel like a smooth 60 frames per second. So again, they used the verbiage that they were targeting it, so that means they're not gonna hit it all the time. And when I was playing, there wasn't much of a difference personally between playing at 30 and 60 frames for this particular game. So I went with fidelity mode to enjoy the enhanced visuals, and the 4K resolution combined with those finer details like the cracks in the streets and reflections in the puddles makes it hard to pass up. Speaking of which, the graphics look stunning in 4K. And not forget the iconic fog. The movement of the fog is incredibly well done, leaving you on edge as you navigate through the unknown. There's something deeply unsettling about not knowing what lies beyond that fog. Overall, the visual experience here is highly immersive, percolating all senses but smell and taste. It truly feels like you're inside a decaying, haunted world. Now let's dive into the story and pacing because there's definitely a lot to unpack here, but again, I won't go into any spoilers. As far as the story goes, it's been really good so far. Without giving too much away, the narrative has been gripping, and there are enough twists and turns to keep you engaged. It's one of those stories where you feel like things are unraveling at the same time as the protagonist is figuring them out. The slow burn pacing works well for this kind of game because it lets the tension build. The early moments, I'll admit, they did feel a little slow to me, maybe in the first couple of hours. It takes some time before the story and action really pick up, but once it does, it's a roller coaster of tension and fear. Silent Hill has always been more psychological horror than just jump scares, and that's exactly what this remake delivers. You're constantly questioning what's real and what's in the protagonist's head, and that creeping uncertainty really keeps you hooked as the story progresses. Jumping into the gameplay now, and I've got to say, I've been having a blast with the combat so far. It's strategic, which I appreciate. You can't just hack and slash your way through enemies. You really have to pay attention to enemy routes, attack patterns, and dodge properly, or else you'll end up using all of your healing items just trying to survive. I like that the game forces you to be cautious. It makes each encounter feel like it has weight, because if you get too reckless, you're going to pay the price. The puzzles have also been a fun challenge. They're not overly complex, but they're satisfying to solve and give you a breather from the intense combat moments. There's a good balance between puzzle solving, exploration, and combat that keeps the game's pace interesting. Okay, let's switch gears now and talk about one of the coolest features on the PS5, and that's the DualSense controller. The haptic feedback is fantastic. It's not just used when you get hit or when you're firing a weapon, but in some really creative ways that amplify the tension. For example, before you encounter Pyramid Head for the first time, you hear this loud, unsettling dragging noises above you, and your controller vibrates to match that sound. It's as if the ceiling is shaking from the weight of this weapon dragging behind you. It doesn't stop there either. When you're walking through the rain, the controller vibrates in sync with the raindrops, and it even pulses like a heartbeat when your health is low. Also, this really clever use of the built-in speaker on the DualSense, the static from James's radio, which warns you of nearby enemies, comes out of the controller's speaker. It's such a small detail, but it adds a whole new level of immersion because it feels like the sound is coming from a separate device that James is carrying rather than being just another game sound. These things really make a difference when it comes to the immersion. And with that, those are my first impressions of the Silent Hill 2 remake. So far, I've been thoroughly impressed by the immersive atmosphere, the tension-building fog, the stunning visual details, and the hauntingly good sound design. Puzzles and strategic combat keep you on your toes, and the way Bloober Team has made use of the DualSense controller takes the immersion really to the next level. There's a lot to appreciate here, and I can't wait to see how well the story unfolds as I continue through the game. Remember, I'll be following this up with a full review once I've finished, so make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss it, and as always, remember, never too old to play video games.